Further remarks. The good member from the 19th District, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important amendment. Please vote yes. Mr. Speaker, I'm a great fan of the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes. And in Calvin and Hobbes, Calvin plays the game Calvinball. And in Calvinball, Calvin gets to make up the rules as you play. And if Calvin doesn't like the way the Calvinball score is going, Calvin adds an extra base to the field in Calvinball. Mr. Speaker, without this amendment, the underlying striker is Calvinball for taxes in Washington. The state gets to change the rules in the middle of the game because it doesn't like the way the game is going. Mr. Speaker, that is not good public policy. And even in Calvin and Hobbes, the point was that wasn't good for Calvin. Mr. Speaker, the reason why it's important to look back at the state constitution when considering this amendment and the underlying striker and the underlying bill is that it is essential that we balance Article 9, Section 1, our paramount duty, with Article 1, Section 1, requiring the consent of the governed. Mr. Speaker, the underlying policy here is an increase in property taxes for the people of Washington. And it's done in a way that is confusing to most and won't be apparent to all, but it is a tax increase. And one of the questions that I get, Mr. Speaker, all the time from my constituents is, aren't we supposed to have a voice in tax increases? Aren't we supposed to get a vote when there are tax increases? And you say to them, I say to them, and I'm sure you do too, well, you do. You get to vote on a levy. You get to vote on local bonds. And this is still cold comfort to many of the people of this state, Mr. Speaker, because they don't see directly how their votes on this levy or that bond translates into a property tax bill that goes up by 20% a year or 40% a year or more. We have to stop playing Calvinball, Mr. Speaker. We have to hold true to a set of rules, and if we change the rules, we need to give the people the chance to approve of any tax increase on their property. Mr. Speaker, we are at a crisis point with the rate at which property taxes in the state have gone up, and we can't change the rules in the middle of the game on the people again. And a last thought, Mr. Speaker, as you've heard some references, but I think this is a point that we need to make clearly. These issues, this Calvinball, this is a reason for the McCleary decision that has so shaped and defined our K-12 school funding in this state. And if we continue to play Calvinball with the rules of how property taxes are calculated, there's going to be another McCleary lawsuit, Mr. Speaker. And I don't want that. I'm sure you don't want it. But one begins to wonder, Mr. Speaker, are there people who want another McCleary lawsuit? Because without this amendment, that's where the underlying policy is heading. Vote no for Calvinball. Vote yes for the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a good amendment. Please vote yes. Mr. Speaker, it is not too late. It's never too late, Mr. Speaker, to fix what's broken in our state. And that's what this amendment does. It fixes something that's broken in how we fund public schools, and particularly the subset of public schools that we call charter schools. Mr. Speaker, it's not too late to fix what's broken in how we fund charter schools. And it is actually consistent with the spirit of the underlying bill. Because the underlying bill is changing the way we fund schools. So it's not too late. It's consistent with the spirit and, I presume, intent of the underlying bill to fix this broken thing. And Mr. Speaker, what we need to keep in mind is that with the underlying proposal, we are raising the property taxes on the people of this state. And if we're going to raise the property taxes on the people of the state yet again, I think it's the perfect time to let the people reconsider everything. If we're going to open the hood of the car, let's look at everything. Let's look at the transmission. Let's look at the engine block. Let's look at the brake lines. Why narrow our focus to one element of our car that needs a lot of work, Mr. Speaker, because it's not running very well? It's never too late to fix something that's broken, Mr. Speaker. That's why you and I are here. Let's fix what's broken in this inequitable and unfair way we fund our charter schools. Let's take the opportunity. Let's seize the moment. Let's vote yes on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very good amendment. Please vote yes. Mr. Speaker, hanging over this entire discussion, hanging over this amendment, and hanging over the underlying proposal, the striker and the baseline proposal, hanging over all of it, Mr. Speaker, like a gray eminence, is the McCleary decision. And, Mr. Speaker, what this amendment does is it shines some light on that gray eminence, and I think gets it under control. Mr. Speaker, as we have already discussed, the underlying proposal actually worsens the state's posture with regard to the legal and constitutional issues that were raised in the McCleary lawsuit. It runs against the spirit of our so-called McCleary fix, and in some cases it actually runs against the mechanics of the so-called McCleary fix. Mr. Speaker, without this amendment, we are driving faster toward the cliff of a McCleary 2.0. And Mr. Speaker, it is incredible to me that we are considering public policy that makes this dreaded reality closer at hand. Mechanically, technically, by accepting this amendment, we delay that reckoning in a good way. Now, as for whether this amendment would kill the underlying bill, I disagree. I don't think it would be a dead bill. And Mr. Speaker, when we say that this amendment or some other element of the underlying bill change to or stay with the form as proposed will cost some tens of millions or hundreds of millions, Mr. Speaker, cost who? The underlying proposal as it stands is going to cost the taxpayers of Washington State and the homeowners of Washington State hundreds of millions of dollars in higher property taxes. When we think of what this policy proposal is going to cost, let's not focus on our own ledger sheet. I mean, that's important. But let's keep in mind the people who actually fund everything. It's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. This is a tax increase, Mr. Speaker, And when we engage in raising property taxes, I think it is incumbent on us to consider every element of what we're doing with that additional money. And yes, make sure it's spent in an equitable way, which it's not in the underlying proposal. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, it's a bitter thing to add hundreds of millions of dollars to every Washingtonian's property tax bill at the same time that we are hastening, we are speeding up the reckoning of the next McCleary lawsuit. It's a lose-lose proposition. I can't support that. I don't think you should either. Let's vote yes on the amendment and fix at least part of that lose-lose proposition. It's a good amendment. It'll put off another McCleary lawsuit. Vote yes.